Okay, welcome everyone to our ResponsiBid scheduling spotlight. We are so excited today to talk with Kurt, the owner and founder of ResponsiBid. And then we have some other lovely guests here with us as well. I'm Michelle from Jill's office, in case you don't know me. And then we've got Nicole also. And then joining us as well, we've got a few of our Jill receptionists. So Christy, you want to wave to us, and Elizabeth? Yeah. We're excited to chat with them too. So we got lots of fun things to talk about today. And as always, if you guys have any questions, please comment. We'll be watching so that we can make sure we answer everything that's going on. But okay, so Kurt, I wanted to start today a little bit different, okay? So
okay. This is going to be great.
So, we're going to rewind to the end of the movie. We're going to flip to the end of the book, and then we'll take it backwards. So I want to talk about, okay, so we're going to rewind and talk about, exactly what ResponsiBid is and how it can help your business. But someone that is using ResponsiBid, you call them a ResponsiBidder, right?
Yep.
Their name? All right. So they're using ResponsiBid. They've got it all set up. They've got it on their website. Everything's connected the way it's supposed to be connected. What is the feeling that ResponsiBidder experiences when they get their first bid through the website or book their first job? What are they feeling? What are they experiencing?
Normally what someone would say is it feels magical. Like, I've worked so hard to get every job I've ever booked, or we've always had to do all this stuff. I think it's a lot like the way Amazon, I read the biography on Jeff Bezos, and they were talking about how it's called The Everything Store, I guess is the name of the book. And they talked about how there was this bell that would go off when people would order. And the first time they saw an order come through that wasn't like a friend or family that bought something off of their Amazon website, they're like, someone bought off our website. I think now over time that they had to shut that bell off because it was, of course, it got a little bit crazy. And I know that ResponsiBidders probably start to feel like, oh, wow, that's cool. Then you start taking it for granted. But the first time someone either gets an accurate quote from your website or schedules themselves from your website in an accurate and intelligent way that's not double booking jobs or making crazy drive times or assigning it to crew members that can't do it. The first time it happens and you're doing it the right way and it happens all on its own, it's like people say all the time, it's just magical.
Magical. I like that. Okay, so Christy and Elizabeth. Okay, so these we actually call our Jills that are trained in ResponsiBid. We call them ResponsiJills. So they know the system. They're in it all day, booking jobs, scheduling appointments, giving out bids for our clients, our ResponsiBidder clients. So Christy and Elizabeth, what is the feeling you experienced when you got trained in ResponsiBid and you got it, you understood how it worked, you knew how to handle it on the call, and you took your first call and gave a bid, scheduled the job? What did that feel like?
Well, for me, I felt super accomplished because I don't know anything about windows or roof cleaning or any of that. And I don't have to really know anything to actually go through the system and provide an estimate to somebody without even going out. And meanwhile, our customers, our clients, they're out on jobs, knowing that I provided an estimate and was able to successfully schedule it using the crew cal and everything. I don't live in that state. I don't know anything about roof cleaning. And then I book a job for them, and then it's like a high ticket item. I'm just like, boom, it feels pretty good. I don't have to know anything. And I feel really accomplished.
So for me, sorry, Michelle. I feel really confident that I'm able to help our clients and the customers of our clients in a way that works for both parties. I feel, really happy that I'm actually able to provide the quote and schedule them in a way that works for everybody. And it makes them feel good, and it makes us feel good to be able to help, the customer and the business owner.
It sounds like that magical may be the word. It's like the user, the ResponsiBidder is feeling magical, the ResponsiJill is feeling magical, and I think that the caller's feeling magical too, because they got their customized bid, boom, they got booked for the job. Nicole, I'm going to ask you too. Okay, so from Nicole helps out with a lot of things at Jill's office, but one of the things she does is she helps with account management and helping our clients make sure that their accounts are all set up in a good way so that everyone's successful. So from your experience, when we have a client that's using ResponsiBid, and they first get signed up with us, and they either already had ResponsiBid or they're just starting to get signed up with ResponsiBid, and they get their Jill's office account all set up with their call instructions, their ResponsiBid login. What have you observed is their feeling when they get their first notification through our app that they got a job booked, that we gave out the bid? What have you noticed that they're experiencing?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really interesting. I remember when we started first using ResponsiBid, that was exciting because it was brand new and there were some really cool features in it that we weren't aware of and we got used to over time. So I know we love ResponsiBid now. When we get new clients that either have ResponsiBid already or are just getting started, they are pretty amazed, for one, at the responsiveness that you guys have. I know David is super helpful, and Hunter, and every time they need help, someone helps them. It's not hard to get a hold of somebody. So if they need that support. But the transition from signing up and getting started with Jill's office and having us to start giving bids and scheduling, it's pretty flawless. I mean, all we really need is the login. And we're able, I mean, we understand a lot about ResponsiBid now just because of, our relationship together, that we're able to help, walk them through a couple of things if they need to, especially if they're brand new to it. But yeah, it's some of the easiest accounts to get up and running. So it's pretty amazing, especially just with how we're not in, like Elizabeth was saying, we're not in those states. Even if they were local here in Utah, we don't know every inch of Utah. And so, having Crew Cal in there and everything is just amazing for them, and it really helps them out a lot.
Awesome. Okay. So we're feeling the magic everywhere. I want to talk from my own experience a little bit here too. And then we'll rewind the tape to the beginning. And for anyone that's listening, right, that it currently uses ResponsiBid, they already signed up, they're already using Jill's office. Don't think that this is only for beginners. We're going to be diving in to make sure you're fully utilizing it to its greatest potential and power. So we're going to be talking about all of it. So stay tuned. And if you have any comments for new ones that don't know about it, please comment along the way. Any tips you've got. But if I could rewind to a few years ago when I first heard the name ResponsiBid, and it was one of our clients tell me about it, and I was trying to understand how exactly it all worked and what exactly it was. And even after our call, I didn't 100% get it. But then once we said, hey, let's try it, let's see what this is, let's try scheduling in it, and we dove in, that was probably one of the best decisions Jill's office has ever made, just because ResponsiBid is so powerful and so incredible, and it works. It's like Kurt knew we needed it before he even knew us. Like the way it's designed is phenomenal, both on a ResponsiBidder's end and also on the Jill's end, and then working together, it's magical. That's a good word, magical. So Kurt, if we can rewind with you a little bit, what inspired ResponsiBid? I mean, you're a window cleaner, right? So what were you experiencing and feeling that even made this all come about?
Well, it's funny because it's actually kind of probably what inspired, I think, Jill's office. And I think that's why we came together so well, is that, at Jill's office, your goal was anyone can get a voicemail and put it on their machine and then maybe substitute a human to be a human voicemail. And there's lots of call centers that do that. I could probably call 100 of them right now and sign up with them if I wanted that. It's kind of weird because voicemail is basically free with your plan of your phone, but some people want a human. They feel like it's important that a human takes the voicemail. And Jill's office didn't want to be that. Like there's already so many of those. Jill's office wanted to be the helpful one, the one that when we call, you can't tell the difference between someone answering the phone in Utah versus in, I don't know, Chicago, some city you don't know anything about, but you have customers that you're answering phones for. And the idea is that they called the office. So if someone in the office sounds like an idiot, we don't want to be the idiot. We want to be the intelligent one. And I felt like the same thing was happening. Well, in my situation, I had a window cleaning company, and people would fill out contact forms on my website to get a quote. And at the time, things like eBay and Amazon had started kind of coming around. and people started changing the way that they interacted with the internet. And at the time, they called it Web 2.0. I don't know if you remember that term. No one even knew what it really meant. They just called it Web 2.0. But the idea was is that people were changing the way they interact with the internet. They were like buying real things on a computer screen. Like, that was weird. And paying real money to get fake things in video games. And it was just a weird time in the internet. And so people would fill out these contact forms. And I think a lot of times they would see these forms, go, oh, cool, request a quote. They would get it. And then, you know, I would be out working or whatever. Or I was a very small company at the time. Didn't even probably, my wife might've been answering the phones at the time, but I would get back from a long day of work and I would get that message, call the person. They'd already booked with some other bigger company that could take care of them when they were calling around. But it was like I was breaking the rules. I felt like the contact form was breaking the rules, kind of like just answering the phone and taking a voicemail. People thought they were going to call and talk to a human and get help, but instead they'd call and talk to a human and talk to a voicemail. Well, I didn't want my website to be that way. And so I also at the time had learned so much about how important systems were as I was beginning to start to hire people and, you know, work out, you know, getting myself out of the field. So by the time I stepped out of the field, that's when I started working on coding out this whole thing that could, I had a company. I knew that I could give out pricing that was terrible. That's easy, but I wanted the prices to be accurate. And I also knew it was important that people would get 3 choices. I learned that that was very important, that people would hear good, better, best pricing, because if you just give them one price, they got to keep calling around to find out who has the right price. But if you give 3 prices, that usually just stops. People just pick one and go. So I had a few things in my head that I knew I wanted to do, and I started building those, and I basically replaced the contact form with this custom coded thing that we did to give accurate quotes. And it was cool because it's that magical feeling. I would wake up in the morning and go, wow, I gave quotes while I was asleep. The one that was the most magical, the reason ResponsiBid exists is because of Thanksgiving morning. I was in the kitchen helping my wife make a turkey for that later that day. And I was up to my elbows in turkey. And my BlackBerry, I don't know if you guys remember the old BlackBerry Storm, but I had a BlackBerry Storm. I was a high-powered window cleaning executive. And I kept hearing it vibrate on the table. But Thanksgiving's an interesting day. Like, you're with family, you're doing stuff, but you know nobody's gonna be in the office. Anyway, I had 3 quotes come through while I was working on the turkey. And it was just one of those days where I guess people were at home and they could shop or do whatever. And the fact that we had this instant quoting thing on our website, we were booking jobs. And I told my wife, I said, I closed 3 jobs while we were stuffing the turkey and I was getting the smoker going and everything. And she's like, you got to bottle that thing up and sell it. And that was the first time I was like, yeah, why wouldn't I? This is so needed. And then we have ResponsiBid.
I love that. That is magical. And Kurt, what industries use ResponsiBid? Who can use it?
Well, the ones that it works the very, very best for is anyone who does labor intensive, I usually don't recommend it for companies that have a lot of inventory. So like a plumber has lots of like fittings and stuff. And HVAC has lots of different kinds of equipment that they sell. Handyman have lots of lumber and different things that they buy. So if you are a carpet cleaner, or if you're a window cleaner, or a pressure washer, or a maid service, duct cleaners actually have done really, really well with it. It's going to be a really good fit for companies like that. And the less inventory, because ResponsiBid, when it builds quotes, it does a great job of tying specific things answered by a question in terms of like the man hours, labor costs, and it generates a quote based off of sort of things like that, where inventory tends to be like, well, let me look at that. Yeah, I'm going to have to get you an L45 copper elbow, and where customers wouldn't be able to answer that. And ResponsiBid really does it at its core. All ResponsiBid is a way to break down questions that a customer could answer and to automatically take all those questions and turn them into pricing strategy that you set up one time and you're done. And now those questions turn into beautiful, good, better, best proposals.
So ResponsiBid in summary it's basically a super smart bidding tool that you can customize with these different industries it works well with to ask the questions needed in order to give them a custom quote without having to go to their home, which is huge, especially with current events. just by them going through, and you can either put it on your website, or it's something that you yourself as a business owner or your techs can use, right, to give bids, and so that they're standard and everything's, I don't know, flows just really smoothly and standardly, I guess. I don't know the right word.
Typically, there's a saying out there that says if you have more than one system to do something, you don't have a system at all. And the truth of that is that anyone who's ever done that, you experience, like, you know, if it's Monday after 2, we do it this way, but if it's Thursday before 1, we do it this way. It falls apart almost instantaneously. And ResponsiBid is designed for your sales rep out in the field or a technician out in the field to give quotes. Your people answering the phones, your CSRs, they can use the same system. And then if you want to turn over your customers, we have lots of fail safes to protect your customers from getting bad quotes. But you can even let your customers do it. And the thought process there, really, just to put it, you know, it's a sales system. It's a way to ask the same questions every time and to get the right pricing out. And then trying to have a conversation with somebody in the sales process. Let's say I was at your house, Michelle, and I was walking around getting a quote, and we just sparked up a nice conversation. What we found is that I might forget a couple questions, or forget to look at a couple things, or forget to whatever. And what happens is that even though I'm there with my feet on the ground, with my eyeballs looking at the stuff, sometimes just having that checklist of answering all the questions to get through it, that's what's going to ensure that you don't forget to add drive time or shop supply cost or whatever. Maybe you forget to count the number of something that I always tend to forget. Well, the idea is that we're going to systematize this so that whoever's giving the quote is following the right process every time.
I didn't think about that aspect. I can so see that. That is really cool. Okay, so person that gets ResponsiBid, they're all signed up, they've got it going, and I know your team is awesome in helping them get all set up. I've personally experienced it, and I was amazed. They're geniuses.
Oh, that is so, but we love it. We strive to be an amazing support team. Yeah.
It is incredible. And that's, I think, the system in itself is amazing, but having that support with it just makes it unbelievable. But then as far as it goes on the Jill's office end, Nicole, help me out here. So someone that is using ResponsiBid, and then they now want to add Jill's office to be able to use ResponsiBid. You kind of mentioned this before, but what do they need to do to get them all set up and working together?
Really what we need is the ability to log in, to be able to schedule those appointments. We like when we do get new clients that are using ResponsiBid, we do like to log in with them and just kind of walk through it with them, just to see if there's, if we have any questions, just to get a good idea of what their services are and how they do like to price things. And that kind of helps just to kind of build that relationship and kind of advance further. And it makes them feel really a lot more secure in knowing that we know how to use ResponsiBid. And so really that's kind of as simple as it is. And then we do try to walk them through some other services that we can do that tie in with ResponsiBid as well, that Elizabeth will probably end up going over too. But in the very beginning, it's really a no-brainer. Everybody over at ResponsiBid is great at getting them up and running. And so really we just need to have the ability to log in to start giving bids and scheduling.
Right.
If I could just add something real quick. I think it's important, people listening. I don't know if I'm just preaching to the choir because this is going out to a bunch of Jill's office people, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. A lot of people sign up with ResponsiBid and they're super excited about being able to give quotes from their website. But we all know that there is a certain, and I'm not going to say demographic, because sometimes it might surprise you who needs to talk to a human. And so someone might go to your website and say, oh, that's cool, there's an online quoting tool, but I'm the type of person who doesn't use the self-checkout lane at the grocery store. I need to go to the cashier lane. That type of person, whoever they are, they're going to look for the phone number. Now, that's okay that the same system being used on the website is being used by a Jill who answers the phone, but here's the problem. You're serving me really well on your website, but if I call your phone number and you don't answer, even though you're ready to serve me on the website, if I'm not a self-checkout kind of person and I'm trying to get to the cashier, next, Google back to the Google, next one down. So what Jill's office does is it extends the system to serve the people who need it. Now, if you can answer your own phones and you don't need a Jill, more power to you. That's great. You'll do a great job. We're sure of it. But here's what happened is that we made this way of making it so that you can get your quotes right every time. Your customers on the website can get their quotes done right every time. And lo and behold, you can have a human answer the phone when it's inconvenient for you, and your customer will get served exactly what they want. And guess what? This person who has no idea how to quote roof cleanings is able to quote roof cleanings. And this person who has no idea about how your town's laid out is able to schedule a job to make sure that you don't drive more than 12 minutes between jobs. So I feel like that's one of the things that Nicole was sort of hinting at, is that if you've got ResponsiBid and you're already doing good, it's easy to onboard you because of the nature of it. But don't forget about it from the customer side. Like some of you are like, well, I'm good. I've got ResponsiBid. It's on my website. Well, for all the people who use the self-checkout line, you probably are doing pretty darn good. But we're going to talk about in a little bit about outbound calls in your follow-up. That's a huge feature that I don't think a lot of people understand about Jill's office / ResponsiBid working together. And I hope we cover that a lot. But the other thing is that inbound stuff where the person wants to be talked to. And guess what? They're going to hang up. They're going to get an accurate price. They're going to get an accurately scheduled quote. And they have no idea that that person's not in their hometown unless there's an accent issue, which we could talk about that later. But in all honesty, they're not getting a person from another country trying to do customer service for them. It feels so nice. And having walked around Jill's office, that's the other cool thing is that I see all the Jills kind of, answering calls and, getting everything done. And it's really neat to watch. Like, these are really smart people that you've hired. And I'm not just talking about the responsive Jills. I'm actually just talking about Jills in general, is that, you didn't hire someone to just take messages. You hired people who know how to follow systems, who know how to answer questions, and who are like playing a game the whole time to make sure that the person on the other end doesn't feel like they're talking to someone in another town.
Exactly. Yeah, you totally nailed it, Kurt, because our whole goal is to feel and sound like we're actually your real assistant, your real receptionist right there in your office. And so and we try to do that across the board, but using ResponsiBid makes it even easier because it takes the guesswork out of giving any kind of pricing, any kind of quotes. It gets the guesswork of, what's your service area, all that's taken out, and you can have just signed up with Jill's office and literally forward a call over 10 minutes later, and we will sound like we worked for you for years. It's that magical. It really is. And it's incredible. But, and okay, so a couple of things I want to touch on real here, and then I want to dig into outbound. First of all, I want to explain that, we have ResponsiBidders that use us in different ways. The full extent of like our inbound is allowing us to give out estimates, allowing us to schedule visit for bids, allowing us to schedule jobs, and taking them all the way from their first looking into your services till let's get you on their calendar. And so we do that for the majority of our ResponsiBid clients. There are some that maybe don't want us to do all of that, and that's okay. We have some that say, hey, I just want you to schedule visit for bids. I don't want you to give out pricing. Fine, we can do that. No problem. Maybe they want us to only give out pricing, but not schedule. Again, we can do that. So you can customize what pieces you want us to take of answering those calls to according to your needs, and you can change. So say you start out and you just want us to do this piece and then you want to add on more, that's totally okay. Super easy and fast to change your requests. We have lots of awesome account managers like Nicole and myself and everyone that are there to help you with that. So I wanted to clarify that. And then Kurt, I have a bone to pick with you. So we dabbled a little. Okay, so the power of the bidding is incredible. I want to talk about the scheduling. And okay, so every once in a while when I'm talking to my kids and I'm trying to give them like a reality check to how good they have it, I'll be like, you guys, I lived before Netflix. And I try to explain to them that like when I was growing up, Saturday morning cartoons, they were the only time we watched cartoons. It was like the only time it was on. And you had to wake up and watch it at that time. You wanted to see that Garfield or whatever it was, or else you missed it. And like I feel like they never completely grasp it. Like, because I'm like, you don't know how good you have it. So ResponsiBid and Kurt created this tool called CrewCal, and in a way it's almost handicapped. That's not the right term. It's like it's kind of did what Netflix did, that it is such a powerful scheduling tool that it makes almost not having it seem retro, I guess that's So Crew Cal, what it does is it makes it, I mean, we kind of mentioned on this, you don't need to know the area. You don't need to know how big the job is. It somehow magically calculates all of that on that call when you put in all what they're needing and you put in where they live. And it tells us exactly when we should book it, how long we should book it in a perfectly pieced puzzle, the way that you want your day to be, with us not knowing the area, not knowing anything about your business, how long jobs take. It is magical. And so I'm grateful, Kurt. I actually really am grateful.
When you said you had a bone to pick, I thought it was even a bad bone. I've never had anyone say, I have a bone to pick with you. Here's a really cool thing. So, but Michelle, let me just say this. When we made Crew Cal, it all started with me talking to a developer. And this is what I said to him. I said, hey man, I have this impossible thing. I just want to say it out loud. And when you tell a developer something's impossible, that's the first way to like get their attention. I said, I just want to design a way for our software that just does sales. ResponsiBid does not do work orders. We make work orders in other software. Like ResponsiBid creates a work order in Java, or it creates a work order in House Call Pro or Service Monster or whatever. I want our software to be able to look just like it was a human being who'd been doing booking for years and had the art, because it's an art and a science, and there's two of it. And I said, I just wish that our software, that's a sales software, could do the last step of sales. The last step of a sale is, do you want this package? When they say yes or no, would you like to do it this day, this time? You know, when would you like to do it? The problem is it's easy to get to the part where, what do you want to pick? What do you want to do? But it was so hard, and I thought impossible. I said, if I was able to teach someone how an office manager, all the things that they're doing in their head, for them, it takes an instant. They're able to do it really, really fast. But if you could do all the things that's going through their head as they're skimming the schedule and trying to figure out where to put them, and they know the area really well, and all the things that they're considering about how big each crew is, how fast the crews work, what capabilities they have, how many miles they're going to have to drive, will it make them work overtime? You know, all those things. If I could just get that last little bit, then we would be a sales software, because we need that last close. Because how many times, and I know that the people watching this, if they own a service company, this is so common. You go out to a job site, you give an estimate, the person you're talking to says, yes, absolutely. And then they say, all right, I'll have someone from the office call you to schedule. They get in their truck, they call the next appointment they're on their way to, their headspace gets all filled up with something else. They never call the office. They never schedule the job that the customer said that they wanted. They miss the last step and they lose the customer. They look like a complete flake, total idiot. They don't want to do business with them anymore. And they were ready to give you their money because of the last step. So when I started this whole crew call conversation, I'm like, I just need that, but it's big. And we're like, that's okay. We can read the Jobber calendar. That's okay. We can read the Google calendar. That's okay. We can read a Service Monster, you know, whatever. And what our customer factor is another big one. Yeah, we'll just read that and then just do all those things and then make a suggestion for the customer to pick a date and time that works. And it's like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
That is, I mean, there's no other word but magical for that Crew Cal. So, and it's magical for the Jills. I mean, again, for our clients that are using ResponsiBid, they don't have to explain to us and give us all these guidelines on, I serve this radius of our area and make sure you book the jobs close together. Like, it's just, it seriously is amazing. So, and Kurt, you kind of touched on these, but I wanted just to make it really clear for anyone that might not be familiar. What systems does it integrate with? And like really briefly, why do you need both? Or like, how do they connect?
Well, I think actually House Call Pro probably put it best. He says, we created the iPhone and we need to have apps to make it extend what it can do. You know, you can use an iPhone to make phone calls or send texts, and it's pretty good at all that stuff, but it really gets good when you plug stuff into it. And we at ResponsiBid, people ask us all the time, when are you going to create a CRM? We're not, just so you know, we're never going to create a CRM unless we change our mind, but we'll never create a CRM. And the reason is because there's already so many good CRMs out there. Like, there's nothing broken out there. If you have a scheduling software and an invoicing software and employee management software and, you know, all the things that you need to do to manage your operation, you're going to find that there's hundreds of tools out there. Some are better than others. I'm not saying that they're all exactly the same as far as quality, but your needs will be met by something out there for your CRM. You're going to find an invoicing software that works for your company. I guarantee it. And if you don't find one, you're not looking very hard. there's a lot of good ones out there. You're going to find a great scheduling software, probably part of the same software if you do a good job of really hunting around. But there is not a great online quoting software that's both accurate and easy. And there isn't really a way to be able to schedule jobs from a customer's perspective of, I want that and I choose this date and time. There really is a big hole in that market. So what we decided is we're an app. I don't care if you like Android or Apple, and I'm using that as a CRM. I don't care if you like House Call Pro or Jobber or whatever. They have their pluses and minuses. If you like Customer Factor, that's great. But if you want to add a whole new level of power to your sales system, whether it's in your office, out in the field, or even on your website, ResponsiBid fills that void, and we try to make it feel like the app is the CRM. We do our very best to make it so that your sales rep or your website's working out of this software, but you just log into your operational software and there's the customer and there's the job they booked and there's their work order and there they are on the calendar, scheduled in the right spot that I would have put them in if I put them there. So does that answer your question? Because I could talk about this all day.
No, it totally does. So those two working together just make you have the full system. And I would argue ResponsiBid is way more than an app, but I get that analogy there. But it is a great add-on. And one thing that for our clients that maybe use those systems right now and don't have ResponsiBid, if you know what I was mentioning previously with that Crew Cal tool, if you're struggling that you wish, you know, there was a way we could schedule appointments more together, you know, I would definitely look into ResponsiBid. That's what we always recommend when people are in that situation, because it is, I tell everyone, it is well worth the money 100 times over, even for gas money alone. But then the time and the stress and the headache of, you know, making sure your crews where they need to be, when they need to be, and that everything is scheduled well, works really well. Another thing is some of our clients might be using some of the systems you mentioned we actually don't directly log into. So in those situations, if you're using a CRM that we aren't specifically trained to log into, if you sign up for ResponsiBid, it's as if we were logging into there, only even a little bit better because it's got all those smart tools with it.
That's so important for people to understand, is that sort of we're trying to be the sales hub and rain down onto the operation, you know, the part get the work done, production. But we do offer a 10-to-1 ROI guarantee. And I just want to take 1 second and explain what I mean by that. You already talked about gas savings. If you can't save the amount of money you spend on ResponsiBid every month just in gas savings, you're probably not using it right. If you can't save the amount of money you're spending on ResponsiBid every month just in having perfect follow-up, we haven't talked about follow-up yet, but ResponsiBid is about quoting, follow-up, and scheduling. It's the sales process. If you can't get enough jobs of people that you would have never followed up with, and I'm talking about for years into the future, if just the follow-up, capturing that, bringing people back through emails, text messages, if you use SendJim, it could be postcards, voicemail drops, whatever. If you're using Jill's office, it could be outbound calls. If you're not making back just in lost jobs that you would have never followed up with and gotten, you're probably not using ResponsiBid follow-up correctly. If you're not saving the amount, if you're not upselling, if the package pricing isn't upselling people at least the amount of money you're spending on ResponsiBid every month, you're probably not using ResponsiBid right. And all these things added together, there's actually more, and I could go through the whole list, but I won't. But the point is that if you're not getting 10 times your investment of ResponsiBid back every single month, we will stop billing you. We will credit you in forward months, and we will train you. You already talked about our training. Very intensive. We will actually stop billing you and start pouring human beings from our company into your life to train you and get you up and running, because our goal is to addict you to crack cocaine. Because once you're addicted to crack cocaine, we have a great company. We sell the ResponsiBid crack cocaine. Don't do drugs, kids. The point is that if you will sign up for ResponsiBid, you will not be able to quit, because it will cost you money to stop using it. That's if you're using it right. It'll cost you a lot more money to stop using it than to use it.
And that is an incredible guarantee. I love that.
Hey, Kurt, can I add something really quick? Something you mentioned that we actually never really dig into and never have really dug into with ResponsiBid is that whole upsell that you have. I don't know why upselling is so, it intrigues me so much, because I know the benefit of upselling, just something really simple. And because I remember being a teenager and working at the movie theaters, and we were required to offer someone to upgrade to a large from a medium for only 25 cents more. Like we would actually have, you know, the secret shoppers would come and you'd get in trouble if you didn't do it. And so, but I understand the benefit totally to upselling. And I don't think we've ever really talked about it that much in ResponsiBid, but I know that it has that feature. Do we have time to just go over that real fast? Because I actually wanted to know how that works. Does it just show or give an offer for a couple upgrades?
Sure. So upselling and cross-selling are two things ResponsiBid does. I think we in the app, we call it automated upsell, but we should be calling it an automated cross-sell. So first I'll explain that, and then I'll talk about why you don't talk about upsells that much, but are happening all the time without you even realizing it. So in ResponsiBid, you can go into certain services that you offer that are sort of no-brainers. Everybody should get a quote for, no matter what. They're easy to quote. I'll throw out dryer vent cleaning as a really obvious one. If someone's getting a window cleaning quote and your window cleaning company does dryer vent cleaning, every dryer vent cleaning costs about the same amount, and everybody's house is pretty much equally flammable. They all need to have their dryer vents cleaned, and it's not that big of a deal to just throw out a number to everybody getting a price. So what ResponsiBid can do is that if someone gets a quote for dryer vent cleaning, they'll just get a quote for dryer vent cleaning, and they can answer all the questions and get a very specific price. Probably won't be that different because it's, again, a very generic service. But if they get a quote for window cleaning and they don't ask for a quote for dryer vent cleaning, then just like when you go to Amazon and you are looking at a nail gun and it starts offering you all the nails that fit in that nail gun, ResponsiBid will kind of do the same thing. Here's your quote for window cleaning. Other items you might be in, here's a dryer vent cleaning for this price. And it's right there in the proposal. Very selectable, just as selectable as the window cleaning items. They're upselling themselves, but truly they're being cross-sold from a service they didn't ask for. So that cross-selling, you can do it for many different services, and you can customize it to just throw out dumb numbers, meaning if someone gets a quote and you want to sell them a driveway cleaning, just throw them a dumb number, like it's a $150 upgrade to any service I offer. Just throw a $150 driveway cleaning in as an option for them to select. Or you can use some of the other information that's always collected, like house size, like number of square feet, or how many stories it is, or whether or not they have a basement, some things like that. And it will automatically use some specifications that are sort of just generalized, and it'll take that into account, and it can sometimes use that to hone the price. And it depends, again, on what you're trying to set the automatic upsell. But those cross sells, they basically take someone who you're done, you don't want to finish serving someone's house, and then at the time of invoice, they go, oh, you clean gutters too? Yeah. Oh, that would have been cool if I would have known you did that. Next time I have you out, I'll have to have you do that. Well, doggone it. That's the worst time to find out. So the cross-selling and the upselling, that's important. And it happens all the time. The upsell is really happening within the service itself. So if I asked you, Nicole, like, hey, can you come out and give me a good house wash? You would say, sure, I could come spray bleach on your house, rinse it off, and your house would be clean for this many dollars. But if you give me good, better, best pricing, and you say, our basic package that includes what you're expecting is $250. But if you would like me to whiten all your gutters at the same time and go around and whiten all that up, that's a $300 job, and do your house wash with the gutter whitening. Or if you'd like me to go through and wash all your walkways and driveways at the same time as the house wash with your gutters being whitened at the same time, that's a $450 upgrade. What's happened is that I, as a customer, called thinking I wanted one thing, and then you put three very manageable things in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't need just a house wash. I can't imagine not getting my gutters whitened and my driveway and walkways cleaned off at the same time. Of course I'm into it. And I just upsold myself. And the thing that's beautiful about an upsell done correctly is that the customer does it for you. And I know that the movie theater is designed to do the same thing, is that the reason that it's only 25 cents to upgrade from a medium to a large is because they're trying to do something what we call the no-brainer upsell. It's the one that basically says the medium should never be sold. We don't even stock any medium containers back there because that's only an idiot would buy it. The point is that I need you to see how good of a value the large is, so that it's a no-brainer and you're not even looking at any other packages. You just give me all your money. And there's different pricing strategies. You don't have to do something like that, but you should always have some sort of strategy. And the upsell you can use downsells. I could do a large that's, considerably bigger for, way more money. And then all of a sudden you get to a movie theater, and for some reason the medium, the large might be a $40 popcorn. Well, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to spend $40 on popcorn. But all of a sudden now, like $10 for a medium, for some weird reason, the cheapest food on the whole planet, all of a sudden I'm like, wow, $10 for a medium sounds like a good deal. That large was not to sell me anything. You can do different pricing strategies, but upsells and cross sells are one of the things that ResponsiBid does really, really well.
It's awesome. Thanks for explaining.
Sure.
Awesome. Kay, I want to kind of direct some attention back to our amazing response agils again. So we've been talking a lot about the cool features in there. Christy, do you have anything to add of we literally collectively at Jill's office answer hundreds of thousands of responsive calls. I don't even know the exact number. We should figure that out that is, but it's, an insane amount. So we are in that system a lot. Can you kind of just share a little bit more about your experience about what you like about ResponsiBid?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I know that I really love ResponsiBid. It's one of my, favorite things to do. I love taking those calls all day long. I love that ResponsiBid is so super user friendly for us, that it's programmed with all the information that we need to take from that caller, from that customer that's wanting a service. It tells us, what services they offer, because we get all the time people saying, well, what else do you do? Well, here's a list right here, and I can tell you exactly what else we can offer you. And then, I love that it's just all right there, and that we are able to provide accurate quotes and then say, well, okay, so do you want me to check and see when we can get you put on the schedule? And then I can get them put on the schedule. And it's just kind of like a whole package deal right there in the one system, that I love. That we can also go back in if somebody calls back as a returning customer. We can look up their information. If they got a quote and they say, okay, I got this quote, now I want to schedule. Okay, perfect. Let me look it up. Let's get it done. I can look and I can confirm an appointment if somebody calls and says, I just want to know, make sure when I have this scheduled. It's just all right there, and it's very easy for us to find.
That's a good point. We haven't even touched on that, Christy. It makes it so easy for returning customers, if they've already gotten a bid within ResponsiBid, to go back and see their past history, what exactly they got done, the pricing, or like you mentioned, if they maybe got a bid but just haven't closed it yet or got it scheduled, to get all that in a snapshot really quick, know exactly what happened with them. So that's a great point. And there's even sometimes notes from our client, the responsive bidder themselves, to see, hey, if this person calls back, let them know this. It's all contained within there very powerfully. So
How often?
I brought that up.
How often do you have to be the bearer of bad news? Like, if this customer calls back, tell them that we're no longer compatible with their way of doing business or something like that.
Some people, that's one of the most magical things about having Jill's office, is like those difficult conversations they don't want to have, they don't have to make.
That's worth the price of admission right there. Like, you don't have to tell a customer that they're psycho. Like, I'm thinking back to when I had my window cleaning company, and I remember that's what I basically had to make the phone call. Like, my guys got back from the job, we flagged the account. They're like, okay, we're never going into that person's house again. It's not a good situation. And I don't want to use the word psycho, because there actually is medical reasons that people have, mental health issues. But this one is actually along the lines of hoarding, and it was actually not a safe environment for our people. But how do you why is it my job to be the one who has to intervene? So we just said, we're just not going to be a good fit for you. Well, why aren't we a good fit? I don't understand. I wish I had a Jill so bad right now.
It's so true.
I have windows. You clean windows. How does that not fit?
Yeah.
That's an awkward conversation.
We're not compatible. The way we're just not compatible. We're just not compatible. I'm sorry. Why aren't we compatible? I don't know why we're not compatible. We're just not compatible.
It's a good word, compatible. Okay, so this part I think will be really helpful to a lot of our response bidders that are currently using Jill's office and ResponsiBid. A lot of them are not fully using the power of our outbound service, and ResponsiBid is probably Elizabeth here. Elizabeth is our outbound manager, so I'm going to have her kind of jump in here in a minute. But I think ResponsiBid is set up probably in a way, how do I phrase this, that it is, you can most use our outbound services because of the power of the way the system is built and the way we can get notifications and the way you can have different stages of the customer journey that you want them to be reached out to. So Elizabeth, do you want to kind of dive in there? Tell us, what can we do for them with as far as our outbound services go, and kind of what stages in the customer journey do you reach out to them?
Sure, absolutely. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so first thing usually when a client asks me to follow up and they manually put it into our system is I ask, are you set up with, did you know you can set it up through ResponsiBid to automatically email us and then we'll call out? And so that's a step they don't have to do. So basically depends on service industry. I love ResponsiBid so much because it makes that's the system I use the most for my follow-ups. Because you can set it up, it's extremely customizable depending on your service industry. So if you're a carpet cleaner and people are looking to book immediately, like it's not usually something they're gonna wait and stew on as long. You're gonna wanna like get that follow-up done. So if they did fill it out online and got an estimate, we can get an email, hey, they got an estimate but didn't book, give them a call. I can give them a call, see if they have any questions, if there was a timeline, if there's any, that way you can find out what reason maybe they didn't book it. And I put all my notes, right, like you were talking about in ResponsiBid for our client to see. So then for the next follow-up, I'd be like, okay, they wanted to wait a few weeks. But it's so customizable. You can set it up to get an email to follow up that same day, right after a bid. We have a roof cleaner in New York. It works so well for, because roof cleaning people tend to think about it a little bit longer. So you can set it up, okay, the day after they get the estimate, give them a call. A week later, and even I've booked jobs from a month later follow-up for depending on the service industry. So you can play around with it very easily. So I just love it because it adds that phone piece in. So they're not just, some people opt out of the email. They don't want calls, or, they don't want text message, but they're okay, like a phone call. And then if I don't reach them, I can leave a message. It just works so well. And then using the notes too, and we can see what happened and what timeline they need. And then you can also customize it. Okay, they said they're looking at maybe doing it in 3 weeks. Then you can set it to trigger in 3 weeks to call them. So you don't have to remember, you don't have to note it anywhere else. You'll get an email, and I'll get that in again. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and then I'll just call out and follow up, and then we can get them scheduled. And it takes out the step out for the customer too to make that call themselves and remember. It's like it helps take the guesswork out. And also, if people are getting a lot of estimates, follow-up is one thing I feel like most businesses, I think they probably don't do as much as they should. And so no matter if it's ResponsiBid, if you have ResponsiBid, set that up like today. And I know that it's hard to make the phone call sometimes because you don't want to like bug people, but you have to have some sort of follow-up system because you're losing. So you collect the people that do the online and only want to do everything online. But there's so many people that still want that phone piece and want to talk to a live person before doing anything. And I get a lot of people that are like, well, you're the only one that's actually calling back, or I've actually been able to talk to an actual person. So even if sometimes the estimate came out higher, they're willing to do it because it just is comforting to actually hear a voice, even though we're going like more automated these days. Like you'd be surprised, especially now with the current climate, a lot of people are just relieved to talk to someone because a lot of companies had to move to at home and they might not have been able to set it up very well with answering their phones. And they're just like a little more chatty because it's like we've been cooped up and it's so nice to hear from a person. So there's so many ways that ResponsiBid has it set up so well with the follow-ups. I love the way it's set up.
It's important to note too that people can swipe an email away, or if an email or a text message comes in the heat of the moment when you're busy with something else and you can't talk, the reminder came and the newness was renewed in their mind, like, oh, I really do need to do something about that. But it'll sort of be extinguished the moment they get past it because they're in the middle of something else. The nice thing about a phone call / voicemail that comes in, like, A, it's a human, it needs to be dealt with now, where emails and text messages could be ignored. And there's certain people who will, if you get them at the right moment with that follow-up, They may respond to a text or an email fast. But the interesting thing about a phone call is that, number one, if they haven't talked to anyone and they're dying to talk to someone, they're going to pick up and talk right then, and you'll, lots of times close the job. But a voicemail sort of is on their timetable, but it's sitting there until they have time to check their voicemail. They have time, I've got time now, I'll answer my phone. And so it's another medium. That's important to understand. Emails, text messages, postcards, those are all mediums. Adding voice calls is certainly another medium that will hit certain people stronger than others. And it's also the way that the timeliness of it works is that it's less easy to ignore. And that's important that people understand too, is that adding an additional medium is only good for diversification, but it's amazing for the timeliness of it. The other thing that's important is that service is so bad. Like most of your competitors from a home service standpoint are so bad that just being good is enough to get higher prices, because they're like, oh my gosh, this might not be a nightmare to get this done. And the homeowner might be willing to pay more. So certainly a voice call coming in says, hey man, like if I had a problem with these people, there's a voice I could talk to. But imagine the same scenario of follow-up. We talked about a roof cleaning job closing a month after the quote was given. Imagine if part of your follow-up was a year or 2 years or 3 years after a roof was cleaned, a voice call went out. And let's imagine that at year 1, it was Elizabeth calling to say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, it's been 1 year. You still have 2 years left on your roof cleaning warranty. Some roof cleaning companies have warranties. Some don't. And some might just be checking in to see if it's time to clean again. But imagine if you were a customer and someone called you. You weren't calling for warranty, but in a year they said, hey, I'm just calling to make sure that your roof still looks good. According to our calculations, it should look absolutely perfect and amazing. But I just want to follow up with you. Imagine what that customer feels like right now. Wow, I gave them my money and they once they have the money, usually, forget them. I'm not going to help them anymore. Wow, they called me to ask if I needed any warranty work. Imagine calling year 2. Hey, it's me, Elizabeth, again here. Just calling to check and see how your roof's looking. Is everything good? You're still under warranty for another 6 months or a year or whatever. And then imagine at year 3, it's Elizabeth again. Hey, are you ready for us to come out? It should be about time to service your roof again. Wow. And the cool thing is that the company doesn't have to actually do anything, but the customer's having this amazing experience every single time because you systematized your company. Your company isn't awesome on accident. Your company's awesome because you were intentional. And if you do intentional things like that, you don't have to actually lift a finger. All you have to do is tell the system, I would like this to happen. And then it happens. That's the beauty of a system.
Yeah, I love that because we have a lot of them set up that way with every 6 months. And since I've been doing it for a few years, I'll see my notes from a year ago that I talked to these people, and it's awesome. I love it because then a lot of them weren't thinking of it. They're like, oh, let me check. I guess my windows need to be done again. And that wasn't anyone that was like calling in. It's just like you made a phone call. Anyway, it's awesome.
Yep.
Kurt, you should know Elizabeth's like an unpaid member of your tech team. You can never have her. We'd never let you have her, but she solves a lot of, like, she knows where she is a whiz in ResponsiBid. Whenever we're like, what's going with this account? She can usually figure it out before and then send it to David or Hunter or whatever. So anyway, it's because she literally is in there all day long with all of our,
Yeah.
But I mean, just number one, knowing ResponsiBid so well, but then number 2, our outbound team, they do these calls all day long. So they're not scary to them because there's always this fear factor of rejection, when you're making those outbound calls, that you, as a business owner, you have that kind of that fear, and it's a real fear, or just, you're so busy or you just don't like being on the phone. But our outbound team, not only do they know ResponsiBid and how to handle that, but they also, they do it all day long. So they're good at it. They're good at making those calls. They know how to make them. They know how to approach them. So it's really a no-brainer to delegate that piece out because 9 times out of 10, you're not doing it. So for a few bucks, you book, an extra several $1,000s worth of jobs every month. It's a no-brainer.
Well, I hope we have enough time for a quick analogy here, but I feel like this is a perfect time. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So every once in a while, someone will sign up for ResponsiBid, they'll get it all set up, and then they'll never use it. And it breaks my heart. David actually gets like emotional when this happens. Like it's a serious thing, but it's a real thing. And I know that you haven't brought up any comments. I'm assuming we're on Facebook and maybe people are making comments, but I'm totally making a guess here. There's a certain number of people who either would never sign up with the ResponsiBid or who have been through that experience strictly because they're scared of an email going out that they didn't actually send, or having a phone call made that they didn't actually initiate. And certainly as entrepreneurs, a lot of people have experienced the whole nobody can do it as good as I can, or if you want it done right, do it yourself. And certainly people who have had that experience, once you've been bitten, it's hard to reach back in and really find the motivation to do it. But I want to speak to those people for a second in terms of an analogy. We have people who sign up with a ResponsiBid because, figuratively speaking, they look up and they see other people with a hang glider flying around, and it looks so cool. And I'll compare those to being ResponsiBidders. They talk about their automations working. They talk about how they're winning more jobs with less effort, and their ticket prices going up, and their prices are more efficiently scheduled. And man, I just set it up. I put 4 hours into setup and spent time with David, and I hand my hand the whole time, and it's amazing. And so these people on the ground are looking up at these people having these experiences, and they're going, I want a hang glider. So they hike up to the top of the mountain and they meet David, and David gives them a nice warm hug, and they've got their free trial box hang glider, and they pull it out of the kit and they build it all up, and it starts to look beautiful. He starts giving them lessons on what controls do what, and they're standing there at the top of the cliff and they are pumped. I mean, it's silent and just beautiful gliding sound. Imagine that, being in a glider, total silence, just nothing but pictures, and just, you're like not touching the earth, but you're having this amazing experience, and you're up there the whole time. And that motivation keeps you building the glider, and your hands are busy, and it feels good because you're like, I'm an entrepreneur building, ho, ho, ho. And you're like super excited. And this hang glider starts to take shape, and you're like, this is a monster. This is amazing. And then the moment comes where they go to the edge of the cliff, and they look over the edge and they go, hang gliders are stupid. And they put their hang glider down. But really what happens is they look over the edge of the cliff and they go, I could give this quote with a ResponsiBid, but there's this other way I've been doing it for 10 years. I'm going to go out and give that quote using my old method. But just this once, I'm going to hike back up to the top of the cliff. I'm going to jump, but it'll be tomorrow. And so they go down, they do that quote the way they've been doing it for a decade. And it goes exactly the same way it did when they were doing it before. And they're like, how comfortable is this? This is nice. And then maybe they hike up again and they look over the edge and they have the same experience. And after 3 or 4 times, they keep looking up from the bottom of the cliff, and they know I've got a hang glider up there waiting for me, and someday will be the perfect day to jump off. So what we do is we try to shove you off. We have a concierge, and her job, once you sign up and you get your training with David, her job is to call you as often as you'll let her and basically help you through your first 30 bids. And it's because a hang glider will never become as comfortable as the other thing you're doing until you've actually jumped off the cliff. Now we're going to hold your hand, and we're going to rub your back and tell you everything's going to be okay. But it's weird when you've done it a certain way for so long. I think the same thing is going to be for having someone else answer your phones. I've always answered my own phones. I've always had someone else answer my own phones. And I'm just telling you that you will always be a land dweller if you keep doing land dweller things. The only way you will become an experienced and amazing hang glider is if you do what everyone else did, which is close your eyes, say, holy crap, a bunch of times, and then just rip it, just jump. And you know what? You might feel like those, what do they call them? That when you hit those hot air torrents, they lift you up. You're like, oh, what just happened? And maybe something doesn't work exactly like you think, and whatever. But the fact is that if you want to advance, if you want automation to start kicking in, and you do want it, you can't listen to the person who is at the top of the cliff, even though they're screaming in your brain. You have to listen to the person who is down at the bottom of the cliff telling you, this is something I need. This is something I really, really want. And if you're willing to do that, then you'll get to have that experience, and it will be amazing, and it'll become normal. But it'll never become normal as long as you keep going back down to the bottom of the cliff.
That is a really good analogy. And Yeah, and I totally applicable actually to Jill's office too. So I love that. It's really. Have you ever been hang gliding?
No, I'm too scared. No, I actually really want to, but I did promise my wife, all of my kids, there's actually the wingsuit thing I want to try as well. I promised her that all of my kids will be moved out and married. She wants me to meet all their spouses before I start doing stuff like that. So I will respect my wife on that, but I will watch YouTube videos in the meantime.
We have a lot of good hang gliding spots in Utah, so I watch them all the time. And I'm just curious, someone who's actually done it. So that is a really good analogy. I appreciate that. And, I actually feel like that's probably a really good way to close this is just, take that leap responsibly from people that have been using it for years, every day, all day long. It's so powerful. Tons of our clients that have been using it and love it. And one other thing I just want to say from my own personal observation is, once, I love that too, watching all those awesome hang gliders. One thing I've been so impressed by ResponsiBidders is just the community that they build and how, there's just something about who is attracted to that software. Is number one, I've noticed they are some of the smartest business owners that I talk to all day. They just, I don't know, there's something about it that they just know how to do business. Not only their trade, they know business, but then number two, that they're so willing to help others. And that's something I've always been impressed by all the ResponsiBidders I talk to. Obviously, a lot of that comes from the whole culture and vibe you've built with the ResponsiBid community, Kurt. And then, if you guys haven't been to, they have an event every year, ResponsiCon. If you haven't been, whether or not you use ResponsiBid, you got to be there. Again, it's kind of like the Netflix thing again. He's changing the game with the way conferences work. So once you go to one of those, none of the others will ever be the same again. So it will kind of I don't know the word again there. It will kind of ruin everything else for you. Not really, but just it's kind of just a game changer. And so if nothing else, connect with the ResponsiBid community, because it is such a powerful and good way to grow your business. So.
Absolutely. In fact, I just chatted you over. If you want to share it in the comments, just responsicon.com. Check it out. It's a cool conference. It really is about community. We know that, with automation and with business, we feel like we're constantly having to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of people out there already doing really cool stuff that'll give you everything. They won't even charge you. They'll just tell you what you need to know. The conference is going to be held the last week of January, the last weekend of January here in Phoenix, Arizona. If it's not canceled because of COVID, we have gotten confirmation from the hotel that if we need to cancel it, we can refund all the tickets back. But we're really excited. Like right now, we don't know if there'll be a vaccine. Right now, we don't know what social distancing measures are going to be working, but we do know that if there's ever a year that needed the community and the in-person thing and the hacking rooms and the video recording and personal connection that we do. There's so much that happens at ResponsiCon. I don't want to turn it into a commercial for that, but I will say that if you are looking for a group of people to help you to build your sales process, whether it's in ResponsiBid or not, there is a group of people who will help you set up your systems and that you can share your systems with. But ResponsiCon is a give, take place. You go and you give, and then you take home massive amount of stuff, and it'll all be done when you go home. That's the coolest part, is that we actually implement while we're there. So it's really fun.
Give, take. I like that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kurt. We appreciate you being with us today. And if anyone has any other questions about ResponsiBid, whether you're curious about how it works signing up or whether you're currently using it and want to use it better, reach out to us. We'll get you connected with ResponsiBid if it's something we can help you out with. So thank you. Thanks everyone too for coming and join us, all the Jills. So it's been great. Thanks, Kurt.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Kurt.
Thank you.